everyone, and welcome to Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. You're watching your 14th time best television station in Nigeria and, of course, on the continent of Africa. That is what we are called, Channels Television, the nation's news leader. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we will be discussing the People's Democratic Party, which held its national convention. But that exercise means a whole lot, not only for the opposition party, but for the nation at large. We shall be dissecting the issues generated from the election. But before we get to do that, let's tell you that the office of the Vice President has been clarifying some misconceptions about the stance of Professor Yemi Osinbajo about the people in the southeast of the country, or certain southeast group, and another on Fulani herdsmen farmers. It says it's a deliberate falsehood. The Vice President's media advisor, Mr. Laulu Akonde, said there was never a time the VP said the Federal Executive Council must crush any group with by fire, by thunder. He also said it's fake news that the VP asked the Nigerians to pray for any group of people perpetrating violence instead of meting out justice to them. Part of the statement by Mr. Akonde, written part, quote, "What the Vice President said about our people in the Southeast is that they are people of industry, and that though there may be issues from different parts of the country, the whole essence of a union is to find very transparent, open ways to resolve the differences, and that he knows that people and leaders across the country, whether from the Southeast, South-South, Southwest, Northeast, North Central, all support the unity of this country," end of quote. Meanwhile, let's tell you what happened earlier today at the presidential villa. The former Lagos State Governor and the APC national leader Bola Tinubu has visited President Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja. He's visiting the villa for the first time since returning to the country from the United Kingdom, where he went for a medical procedure. Mr. Tinubu speaks on the meeting with the president.
To thank, first of all, the president for his visit to my residence in London when I was, after the surgery, and wishing me well, lifting my spirits, and did what an exceptional leader would do to collaboration. That's all. That's what I came for. I'm welcoming him back from the trip from Saudi. No politics.
Just courtesy call.
Courtesy call. Say thanking you in a big way. Thank him in a big way. His response is that he's happy. Okay. Other things I'm not obliged to discuss with you.
They say sometimes some of the meetings behind closed doors are not all that you get. Well, he said there are other things that he's not obliged to say. Well, we might want to read in between the lines, perhaps some of the issues that have now generated controversies across the line will get us talking tonight, everyone. So get sit tight and let's get talking. But first, again, let's tell you that the alleged invasion of the House of Justice Mary Odili, a Supreme Court judge, is getting more reactions. This time from the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, and some leaders from Rivers. They held a press conference today in Abuja where they're asking the federal government to unveil the identities of those behind the alleged invasion. Take a listen to the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike.
We are taking steps as a government and people of the state to see that this matter is concluded and find out who are those who are the perpetrators. Because I would think that it's an attempt to assassinate Justice Mary Odili and the husband and the members of the family. That is because there's no two ways about it. And if they have succeeded, though all the federal government would have told us, we'll get to the bottom, to the root of the matter. Because that has always been the normal language. The issue here has nothing to do with the Attorney General. We're happy. He said he's not aware. And it's okay. since you are not aware, we are giving 48 hours to tell us who are responsible or who is responsible. It's just not enough to say EFCC said we don't know anything about that. It's not just enough to say DSS say we don't know anything about that. No, it's not enough. Which group went to the magistrates to get an order? And they said is asset recovery panel in the Ministry of Justice. And Attorney General has come to say there's no such section or panel in the Ministry of Justice. So, no problem. So, but they have involved the Ministry of Justice. So that's why it's okay. You must find out. Mere denial is not enough. You must take concrete. So I was saying 48 hours is enough for any serious government to come up with, say, look, we have known those who did this. And this is the action we are trying to take. So we are telling the world to know. If anything happens to the family of Dr. Peter Odley, the federal government should be held accountable because they have shown that there's something they are about carrying out. If anything happens to my Lord, Justice Mary Odley, the husband and his children, the federal government should be held responsible. And that is the position of the Rivers State government and the Rivers people.
Well, then, that's not our focus tonight. Just one of the issues in the polity. Well, let's focus on what has become a very eventful weekend, politically speaking, as Nigeria's main opposition political party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, made a big statement with the National Convention, which held at the Eagle Square in Abuja. The party is being able to birth a brand new leadership, although they're still in the corridor. They're not inside the house yet. I'll tell you details of that in a moment. This is how the event was concluded. Take a listen to the chairman of the planning committee and the governor of Adamawa State, Governor Hamadu Fintiri.
Very importantly and very significant is for me to have the privilege as the chief returning officer of the 2021 PDP convention election to announce and declare His Excellency Senator Dr. Ayocha Ayo as duly elected and returned as the national chairman of our great party, the PDP.
I have waited patiently. I have vision, oh I believe. I know I can count on me, so stand up. For the champions, stand up.
So that was the mood yesterday. Oh, well, no, it wasn't yesterday. Largely what we saw during the day yesterday was preparation. It was in the dark that the whole event happened. Not like it was in the dark, but there was light there, but I meant it was in the night through the morning hours. So the man that will be taking over from Prince Uche Secondu, Senator Ayocha Ayu, has fired a shot at the ruling party. This is his very first statement since he was announced the national chairman of the PDP. You can call him the national chairman in waiting. Take a listen to him.
PDP is back. Fully. And is back to rescue Nigeria from the terrible mess we have been in the last 6 years. Those Nigerians who have lost hope should today know that Nigeria is not a divided country. PDP will come back, unite our people, put them together, north and south, east and west. We will move ahead to develop this country. We did it before, we are going to do it again.
This convention is hereby adjourned sine die.
All right. So I was telling you that he's the national chairman, yes, elected, but still in the balcony, in the corridor, not inside the house. What do I mean by that? Let's get some clarity on what happened yesterday. Members of the PDP are here. There are very strong implications of the PDP convention, and some of the statements made there are far-reaching. Let's analyze some of these issues for you. I'm being joined tonight by a sitting federal lawmaker. In fact, from I think the senatorial district where Senator Yochayu is from is the Senator Yochayu's senator. Senator OK Jeff joins us now in the program. He's a PDP senator from Benue State. And Professor Julia Foadibe is a professor of political science at the Nasarawa State University. Mr. Segun Showumi is a former spokesperson of the PDP presidential campaign. All of them in white, the three wise men tonight. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. I was saying that Senator Yochayu is in the balcony, not in the house yet, because they're not sworn in. Can you explain to us what happened, why they were not sworn in?
Of course, you know that the tenure of the extant ESCO is going to come to an end on the 9th of December. You know, so even as they have been elected now, they'll have to wait till the tenure of the present ESCO will come to a conclusion. Otherwise, that would be an infringement. That would be a breach of the standing constitution of the PDP. So, you know, just like the INEC would do, you know, they'll hold an election, but that doesn't mean the tenure of the sitting person, either governor or president, or whichever position, will come to an end instantly. We have to wait until
they see through.
The legal tenure of that occupant of the office will come to an end. So basically, that is what happened yesterday. Maybe would have come a little bit later, but because of the problems in the party, the leadership of the party sat and decided that we'll have it in October, but wait until that time before the takeover of the new ESCO. So Yochayu is incoming, like you said. He's not in a hurry to take over. There's a lot of work to do, actually. Since he emerged as the consensus candidate, he's very much aware of the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. So he's been going up and down, trying to ensure that when he takes over, he will hit the ground running. And the expectations are huge, you know, huge, because it came to a point that Nigerians were giving up on the PDP because the APC had...
They were or they did?
Where? You know, I won't say they did, because the APC has come across as a party of deceit, truly.
Your former party?
Yeah. And I take responsibility for that.
Because you are one of those who preached APC to Nigerians.
APC.
So when you're here now and you're telling the Nigerians APC is...
I'm not God, truly. I gave my reasons why I was supporting Buhari's candidature then. I believe that considering that at his own age, and if he came and presented himself to be president, I thought it wasn't because he wanted to amass wealth. It wasn't because of any other reason, but to push Nigeria forward. That was my expectation. And I'm not God. I preached that, but somehow he came, and it's not exactly what they promised they are doing. In fact, they have disappointed Nigerians. Everything they accused the PDP of doing, they have gone from bad to worse. Okay?
So how do you feel that Senator Yochayu, is this the first time we're having a North Central chairman of the PDP?
Actually, Benue State, where I come from, this is the third time a Benue son
is leading the PDP.
Leading the PDP. No, Chief Gemade was
Gemade, yeah.
Chief Audogo was now Dr. Yochayu.
So it does look like Benue State has owned up to legitimately now as...
you can say that again. You can say that again.
Mr. Showme, how do you feel today? Well, because we understand that you were played out in the scheme of things. You were supposed to run for office, but on the sideline we're hearing that somehow the powers that be wouldn't allow you.
No. Look, Sean, people don't understand why we use a very big word like zoning and what it is meant to do. A country as large as Nigeria will have only a few positions. If you do not introduce some form of equitable distribution of those positions, you're going to run into trouble that a significant part of the country may be left out. What had happened in that particular case was that the party had zoned the posts in the north, the former north, which included the north central, to the southern part. Before they could even do the zoning, a lot of generic expectation was that I should run. I was measuring it because I knew we had to wait until the full zoning was done. But you know, sometimes you can't call people that are fans, you can't call them back. It was good. It felt really nice to know that what I have done for the party is appreciated by a large number of the rank and file of the party. But when the zoning finally came, Ogun, where I come from, we are presently the ones occupying the acting national chairmanship position. We have just not recently occupied the national auditor's position. And every NWC post, especially the main ones, not the deputies, we usually share them between two states. So you will have Lagos Ogun sharing, Oyo and Osun sharing, Ondo and Ekiti pairing. Therefore, it was hard for Ogun to keep taking it in the face of the other. So when the zoning finally came, it was zoned to Ondo Ekiti. And as a good party man, I put out a statement saying, these zonings are difficult to understand by people outside the fray. And that's what has happened. So if you ask me specifically what was my opinion about yesterday, you see, before yesterday, I had started to wonder whether we were injuring the democracy, because I was looking at the ruling party, the APC, and I was looking at the PDP, and I was wondering that we've spent some time at this. By now, we should begin to get more systemic. But by the time we got to the convention ground, with due respect to everybody, you can only applaud the men who had the responsibility of managing us. In our case, we had 13 governors. And for the first time in the history of our party, we have never had them so united. That has to be a plus. They came to the table with something that looks like mostly all the position consensus, with the exception of about maybe 3 or so. And of the 3, the indication was that where they signposted it to was where the delegates also followed. And it was a beautiful spectacle. You were there. It was well done. There was no crisis. There was nothing. And then there was something that kept occurring to me afterwards. I kept asking myself, shall a pool of delegates in thousands from many of the states, some of them without governors, some of them with governors, shall they come to a national convention to come and pick ESCOs? And whatever be the quality of executive they pick, would they truly want to say only 13 people force them to do that? That's not my reading of it. My reading of it is that 13 governors naturally provided leadership, but the totality of the delegates of the People's Democratic Party of Nigeria took a position and gave their votes to whom they gave it to. And therefore we'll say, congratulations to those who have emerged. We'll say better luck next time to those who didn't exactly get lucky. And we will now hope that we can calm free nerves, we can bring the party together. Because at the end of the day, 2 main political parties exist in this country, the APC and the PDP. And neither of these parties can afford to present to the Nigerian people some kind of disorganized internal situation, which would then make the generality of the populace ask the question, if political parties that are the safeguards, the first safeguards in democracy, will not manage themselves well, then maybe people will get a little bit more. So the PDP must be commended for at least managing themselves through a crisis, pulling themselves together, doing the spectacle that is required, delivering a clean election. It was well done. Surely it's called politics. People can be aimed out, people can be edged out, but nobody has been treated in an illegal manner. Whoever wanted to buy a phone was allowed to buy. Whoever wanted to canvass for vote was allowed to canvass for vote. And the man that has won, I think that ESCO, giving a lot of prayer, support from all Nigerians and all of the leaders, I think they have a chance of doing very well. Iyochari, for instance, most people do not know that all of the activities that was considered to have been the work of the very first chairman of our party, his name skips me now, Chief Solomon La. Most people do not know that Senator Oyechi Ayu, as he later became alive, at that time was actually the assisted, the special advisor to him, working very hard with him to back the party. So it's like one of the foundational leaders
was a
of
member
this
of
party.
the G8, then
Yes.
G34.
Yes,
And
so, yeah,
eventually-
so one of the foundational leaders of this party has now been kept on the saddle. The onus is on him to reconnect the PDP to its foundational ideology, which is a political party that has a slogan, power to the people. And therefore, we'll wait to see whether that devolution will take place and the calmness will happen,
right.
New ideas will come. And like he told you, it's a rescue mission. And let us hope that God and Nigerians will give us an opportunity to rescue them.
Let's see how that plays out, because it's a long journey. Because I have a lot of issues here to take up with you, the chieftains in the party, about some of the issues that came out of that convention. It's not Uhuru anyways.
It can never be. It's politics.
Exactly. So let's ask, you have assessed yourself on the inside. You've given yourself pass. Let's ask someone who is not a member of your party, but is a specialist in politics, Professor Jide Ofadibe. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
What do you make of yesterday's convention, or the Saturday, Sunday convention of the PDP?
Well, let me start by saying that they should be commended. The party should be commended in the sense that it did not end in very, very bitter tone. You know, most of the positions were, shared through consensus. It also demonstrated that the power of the governors, has always been there, and they call the shots. I think in 2017, the same thing happened, where most of the positions preferred by the governors, those that were put forward by the governors, they got the position. However, when I look at the way the positions were, shared or distributed, I want to wait until the APC gets its own convention and zoning. That is the time we start, because there are group dynamics. That's the time we start to say, this party has done well, this is a party for this is a party. For example, I don't want to use the, but the secretary, both the chairman and the secretary about Christians, we don't know how it will play out if APC goes the other way. Because inevitably, if you follow the political history of this country, at a point, the two major parties, one will be said, this is a party for this group, this is a party for the other group. If you look at the major distribution of the key positions, we have to wait until the APC, conducts its own position, allocates its position, distributes its national offices. Then we'll begin to say, how do we start describing the various political parties? But this is something very interesting that happened. But people have not started talking about it, because the other party, we still don't know how the political offices
It does look like,
for
Prof, you might be able to assess this better than I do. It looks to me like the PDP and APC are playing some kind of a poker game. So they're watching each other's cards and trying to find out what the other person is, the other party is trying to play. And the PDP has been a bit also cautious and watching what the APC is doing. And this convention of the PDP, I know, is going to be instructive for the APC in their conduct. One of the things that was said by Senator Yocha Ayo was that the APC has not been able to conduct a national convention. And they also said, one of the things that I said was actually very, very interesting and actually very fun, in that in that state they have 92 or so chairmen in that state talking about how things were factionalized. Those are the assessment of the new chairman of the PDP. But the question is, the force and the weight of the governors still remains. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, you cannot rule them out because of the virtually all the national legislators, one way or the other, are controlled by the governors. In most cases, if a governor doesn't want you to be a House of Rep or Senator, chances that you will make it will be very slim. So, and that has always been the case historically. And I think whether it's a good thing, I think it's good in many ways. It is good in the sense that they control, they have this territory that they are the emperor, so to say, and they decide. So our own democracy operates only at the national level. At the regional and subnational level, it's a different form of democracy that operates, where the strong man, the governor, is more like the emperor, the monarch. And often whatever they want, in most cases, unless the power from the center disagrees, often whatever they want, they get it. But the point really I wanted to make is that the PDP seems not to have been conscious of the fact that increasingly it was being defined as a party of the South, South-East, South-South. And now you bring in this North Central into it, of Benue. I don't know how that plays out, but at a point it was shrinking into that. So we see how the other one distributes its own political offices and eventually the presidential candidate. And that then will define the tempo and trajectory of the campaigning and the elections.
It's going to be interesting. There's something that Osita Chidaka put out on social media, which is going to form part of our conversation after the break, about some of the intrigues we saw on the ground. So I was on the ground myself, and I saw posters already made. People are they're giving souvenirs out already. People are already making statements showing intention that they want to run for president. It's quite an interesting thing. I mean, it's been a while. I saw a festival. It looks like a festival to me yesterday. It got to a point in time that the gates of Eagle Square was virtually thrown open. I mean, all the security situation were broke down because people wanted to come inside. But when we come back from the break, we'll be able to dig into a few of the issues that were raised. The 2023 presidential race was a major talking point at the PDP convention. With what we saw up next, that is going to get our attention, with the three men in white dissecting and analyzing these issues for us. The PDP and the 2023 agenda gets our attention. Who are the big names thrown up? What are the possibilities and the permutations? Join us after the break, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. It's Sunday Politics live here on Channels Television. Let's get back to the conversation. I've been speaking with a sitting federal lawmaker from Benue State, Senator OK Jeff, and Professor Jide Afo-Adibe, Professor of Political Science at the Nasarawa State University, and Mr. Segun Showumi, our former spokesperson of the PDP presidential campaign. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Your party could not achieve consensus in three positions: the auditor, the deputy national vice chairman position, and that of the national youth leader. But it's interesting also, because I'd like Prof to mention this and to talk about this later. A youth leader is a 25-year-old young man who I guess is still in fact in school or something. That's interesting. That's a first, considering the PDP that has also always given us a 50-something-year-old youth leader. What does that mean, Senator? You could not achieve consensus in three positions. Although we've seen former Governor Oyinlola congratulating Ambassador Arakpaja and reaching out to him, but not being able to achieve those consensus in those three, those signal to some trouble brewing in the future.
Sean, let's face it, this is one of the most successful national convention of the party. We've had in the past far more positions being contested at the national convention. And so if we have 21 positions and only 3 or so were contested for, I think that's a huge achievement. We are dealing with politicians, and even with the best effort, sometimes we come up with this kind of scenario that some people will just refuse to retreat. And so since we are talking about democracy, you can't force people to step back when they say, no, I want to face the electorate. And so I think that, for me, that's the beauty of democracy. Okay, so that shouldn't be counted against the huge success that was recorded yesterday. 3 out of 21. For God's sake, that shouldn't be a blot on what happened yesterday.
But it is an issue that raised the issue of the contestation and whether or not people are satisfied with the issue of consensus. If the consensus was generally acceptable, three positions.
Well, the important thing there, Sharon, for me, is that for those that refuse to concede to consensus, they presented themselves before the electorate, and the voting was free and fair. And I don't think any of them is saying that, no, I don't accept the result of the elections that took place yesterday. So it could have been better, I agree with you, if all the 21 positions came through by consensus. That would have been beautiful. We would have clapped for all of them. But it never happened that way. Not that there wasn't any trial on the part of the leadership to do so, but somehow those positions had to be subjected to the...
So some of the views, Mr. Shogumi, is that some people were twisted out of the race
let me
to achieve consensus. And it's not only your party that consensus is causing trouble. It's also causing trouble in APC.
let me try and explain it differently for the benefit of our audience. Those three individuals who subjected their popularity to the test of the electorate, of the collegiates, they are the ones that give us the impetus to know that we're not leading a band of sheep. In a political process, in the first instance, how do you even come about consensus? When positions have been divided, north and south, Northern Caucus will sit down and divide it into 3 zones, northwest, northeast, north central, ditto for the south. When it gets to each of those zones, some zones have 6 states, some have 5. The zones still have to go and decouple it so that each of the states can be represented. And then when it gets there, of course, people will be thrown up. Sometimes, like in my case, the National Publicity Secretary of the party was zoned to Ondo. I knew that as a party man, it was an anathema and not so good for me to insist that I'll buy the form, which I wouldn't have been stopped from buying. Would I be saying that we will allow all the positions to go through only one section? But some people will test their popularity. The 3 positions that were contested is something I need to take you to. One of them, that of Ina Chiroma, deserves the loudest applause. For us, it resembles the effort of Hillary Clinton, who is trying to say a woman can be president. It was a similar situation where she was saying a woman can do that job. Let's go and test it.
But that was not the case.
Yeah, she didn't win.
In the case of our contesting, she was one of the strongest voices saying the PDP has failed on its promise. You remember
about the percentage of women.
Yeah, no, that the party promised a 35% of the election for the positions in the NWC. Yeah, but it's only one position at the party. That is the one that is natural to women.
The problem with that, Arinyo, that's why I was commending her. The problem is that this 35% affirmation is very difficult to be justiciable. If men buy the form for those positions and women buy the form for those positions, it was great courage on the part of Inachi to go and test it with the electorate.
But doesn't it also put a question mark on the integrity of your party?
No, it doesn't.
No, hold on, because your party says we will give so and so position.
You cannot give what people have a right to contest.
No, but that's the point. Then you don't make that promise.
Let me explain it to you.
Let me make a promise.
I need to make a point. So the Beijing conference said they will give women, everybody should try to achieve 35%. The only time you can truly do that is when you are given appointments. And all of the PDP government, from Obasanjo to Yar'Adua to Jonathan, they have done that. But when it comes to elections, you can't say you won't sell form to men. You will hope that men will be reasonable to avoid buying form just to manage it. But the authority that manages an election will run into trouble.
Let me put a point where your argument might be punctured by some people who don't agree with you, Mr. Showumi. So if, for example, if you are able to, for example, the National Publicity Secretary of your party is presently being occupied by someone from Kogi State, North Central, and if you are swapping position, automatically a South-South person should have, just a moment, that is the rationale.
No,
that's the rationale. If your party said you're swapping the position, when you swap, and that is why when Uche Secondus from South-South, they say you are swapping, and that's why North Central could be considered, because naturally you go to North Central. Just a moment, Mr. So in the case of the National Publicity Secretary, it should naturally have gone to the South-South, but your party sat down in the Southwest and say, okay, it should go to the Southwest. Southwest got it and said, let it go to Ondo State. That's an agreement. That's a consensus. You are able to agree out of 21 positions, 19 or 18 of it, you are agreeing on consensus. If you made a promise that women are going to get so and so position, you didn't even give them 5.
No, I'm not approving the fact that
I'm saying that shouldn't your party have kept to his promise? This is the party, just a moment, this is the party that is telling Nigerians that he wants to get things wrong and take things right.
You need to listen.
And yet you can't keep the promise.
You're asking a question, let us explain where the party member.
Go ahead, please.
Now, thank you. I've just explained to you that when it comes to contest, position that people can go and freely buy from, position that people can say, I'm going to contest, you can't force people out.
Why did you make the promise?
No,
Senator. Okay, please. Why did you make the promise?
You see, very soon.
I think it does look I'm fighting for women.
No.
Your party made.
Let me make the point, Sheung.
Yes.
I think very soon the party will be amending its constitution.
Thank you.
I think what the party is waiting for is this electoral law the electoral bill to be signed into law, so that we see whether certain things will be tinkered with. But they, having observed this 35% thing, I think the party is thinking along the lines of, okay, since saying 35% should go to women is so nebulous and there's no way you can, like you said, what will happen is that perhaps they will say, okay, treasurer should go to a woman. So apart from national women leader, a treasurer should go to a woman.
We will lock it in by law.
So if that is done, you know that there's no running away from that. But the way it is now, there's no way you can, because if men buy forms, you can't say no, step down for a woman. He could take you to court, because that would be some form of discrimination too.
They could also take you to court when you are talking about consensus. If you ask people to sit at the table and say, you step down for this and step down for this,
that is why you
could as well give that consideration. I'm saying that
why you raise
you cannot keep to it.
Sharon, that is why
you make the promise.
That is why you raise this position about the three who subjected themselves to election. Nobody will
force you to take consensus.
Nobody will force you to take consensus. If you reject, you face the electorate.
That's it.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Prof, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I think these are politicians, so with all respect, you are bound to defend the position of your party. I think from the perspective of optics, the same philosophy that goaded you into a consensus arrangement, I see the point you're making, could have also goaded you into saying, can we reserve a position, not just for women, but for physically challenged? So you present it into the public space as, look, we are different. You know, I mean, these days, you know, people appoint people that are physical. You want to show that inclusiveness. You don't turn yourself into a boys or men's club and start telling people, yes, we are going to become run an inclusive government. We know people in opposition are very good in logic and argument and rhetoric.
Globally politically acceptable standard.
Optics. So that people will believe what you're saying. You promising that this country has never been as divided as, allegedly as divided as it is now. So you start from that distribution of your positions and say, look, we have elected somebody who is physically challenged, we've elected a woman, we've done this. It doesn't necessarily, I agree with you in some way, it doesn't necessarily have to be 35% at this stage, but let there be a semblance of inclusiveness so that you have a moral platform on which then to argue that if you come into a position of power.
Percentage that was even adhered to 0%.
No, I'm just saying
the one that is naturally for women is what they kept to.
So if that had been done in terms of optics, he's saying that it is inclusive. And as I was saying to them, there are also a few things that they should have been much more conscious about in terms of optics. I've mentioned, for example, chairman, secretary, a number of them. You are going to hear this argument later. This is predominant Christian.
But that's not the first time. Since 1998.
No. This is
chairman and secretary.
I know, but I'm coming because the environment has changed. Given the whole allegation against the present regime that is mismanaged diversity and religion and ethnicity and regionalism are likely to play greater role in driving
the concentration should have been
in driving the politics. That's my personal opinion.
So Mr. No problem. If you want to play politics, get into the arena. The thing is this: when you zone the national chairmanship to the North Central and it gets microzone to Benue, the odd chance is that a Christian is going to pick it. They don't have too many Muslims there. If you zone the national secretary to the southeast and it gets microzoned to Imo, the chances are that a Christian will pick it. When we zoned both the youth leader and the deputy youth leader into a certain section of the country, both of them are Muslim. And please, for the sanity of this country, we must begin to step away from this religious argument because of its ability to just color everything badly. I tell you again, I didn't even become National Police Secretary, so one can be upset. But I'm explaining to you that if we didn't even have consensus, and if we did not have zoning, and if we did not have some of these arrangements that takes a lot of pain to make happen, we could literally find ourselves in a situation where the most popular people, maybe from one of the big states, maybe in the north, will run with everything, and would that be a party? Why do you think I singled out Ajia Ina Chiroma? It is because that zone, that particular position was zoned to, is one of the northern zones. And it was great courage for her to go through with an election so that in the future, more women will understand that notwithstanding zoning, they can contest. You know the painful part? The painful part is that the delegate conference consists of a lot of women, and yet we didn't see her even pull the numbers of the total number of women that were available. How do you do that? That was what I was explaining to you. When that constitution, which we are going to now, review based on what we're expecting, I sense that greater emphasis will tie the hands of the men for more position. Because I tell you this, nobody who understands where the world is will be happy to have a men's club as a political party. Do you know the amount of effort it took to even get the young man that is under 20 something years to become the national? Even that position was contested. One would have thought that since the boy was so young, he connected to the right youth audience, that generation needs to be brought on board. One would have thought that the other man would just step aside, but he didn't. But the guy won, and we're happy for that. What am I trying to say? I'm saying in essence that please, let us sit down in public discussion space and be pretending as if something that people sweat to make happen, to manage people's interests, to manage contending issues, is easy. It's never easy.
Well, everybody knows that it's never easy.
That's and we'll see what your friends, the APC will be able to do when their convention comes.
They are your friends.
We'll see what they can do.
That is the former home of
I know. We'll see what they will do. We'll see what they'll bring.
But the question is that is what you are doing. That is why you are a politician.
Exactly.
And we need to take you by the standard.
No, you should. We agree.
And that's what we say.
Let me
and I told you that it was a good one. It was a good one to say that a 25-year-old is your youth leader.
Apologize.
But when you are not doing it well,
we apologize that we couldn't give the women as much positions. But I tell you with every sense of integrity, this People's Democratic Party is going to change that rule so that we can tie it and make it a little bit more easy. For really, what do women want? Women just want access, and they don't want to be elbowed. And nothing demonstrates that than the fact that Ina Chiroma was brave enough to go through with it. It's almost similar to the Americans, who have not been able to produce a female president till date, and yet that is the homeland of democracy. These things take time.
And Cheon, let me just quickly add that where even as this argument goes on, I mean, it's a healthy one.
Yes.
We shouldn't walk away from the fact that yesterday's convention was a huge success.
Absolutely.
A huge success. In trying to tackle the issue of women empowerment in political, we shouldn't do what the Americans, or what is called reverse discrimination. Because if without first amending our constitution, you say step down, and the person has a right to say, no, I'm not going to step down. I want to subject myself to the electorate.
The process.
So if they in subjecting themselves, the electorate, like Ms. Chiroma did, she was asked to step down. Now she insisted that, no, I want to face the electorate. But she got, I think, about 200 votes out of the 3,000. So that is democracy at work. So until we amend our constitution and insist on certain specific positions zoned to women, what happened yesterday is brilliantly
all right.
well.
I was going to make reference, and Prof might be interested in this conversation. I saw so many posters, so many souvenirs. Politicians are already spending a lot of money to tell the delegate I'm interested. So when they are considering this, remember me, I'm interested, I'm in the race. They were telling that's what it looks like. So we could see the likes of Atiku Abubakar's face boldly written on some posters, Bukola Saraki's face boldly written on souvenirs, Tambuwa's face boldly written. In fact, the newcomers in your party, the like of Shehu Sani's face was on the poster for governor of Kaduna State. And we saw the likes of Mimiko on the grounds. We saw the likes of Dele Momodu on the ground. Interesting scenario playing out. But let me read something that was posted on the former aviation minister's Facebook page, and was making reference to the fact that out of everyone that we saw their posters there, he said, let me just read exactly what he said, and I quote him now. He said, at the PDP convention, he put a picture of himself on his Facebook page. Tambuwal, Bala Muhammad, Kwankonso, Saraki dominated the arena with presidential posters. No Igbo man even shared leaflets.
Okay, let me reply with this. In the history of this country, say from 1999, I think if you regard Buhari has been the only front runner that eventually became president. It's always a last-minute thing. Obasanjo was brought out of prison and made president. Yar'Adua wasn't. If Yar'Adua was thinking of being president, he was being discreet about it. Jonathan Goodluck was not a front runner. It was the Odeles and the rest. So every group has got its own, and in fact, starting from the time of Awolowo, who will always be the first to announce his candidacy, quite often historically, those that do that, they never get the crown. So unless something changes, you can just announce that if you go there and declare, you'll find people who will clap for you. That's Nigeria. I'm not saying they don't have chance, but politicians often need this ego boosting, things to be, get the energy and the enthusiasm and optimism to get into and stay in the arena.
Although Osita Chedoka eventually,
but I'm talking about
in part of the post, somebody said Sam Onhamboa shared leaflet, but he did not see it. So just to corroborate,
I agree with you.
So the question Osita Chedoka was raising,
I agree with the legitimate
about
question.
The agitation from the southeast.
I agree. It's not going to be handed to anybody on a platter. That is, it's like a pearl. You have to put your hands in the furnace and get the pearl. I agree with you that we haven't seen the people who are crying marginalization most, but that does not necessarily mean that if the powers that be, and if we look at the way presidents have historically emerged since 1999, Buhari has been the only one who contested consistently and then eventually became the president.
So if I use pragmatically and realistically too, if I use what I saw yesterday on the grounds with the posters of people who I saw, majority of them from the northern region of the country, can one just say that the PDP seems to have zoned the presidential slot to the north?
I wouldn't say that.
By body language. Because body language became part of our politics recently.
It's too early to say. Anything is possible in politics. And I don't think even because the chairman is zoned to the north at this stage that precludes the presidency coming from there. There are still a lot of horse trading and a lot of things that people are going to take into consideration. I think in the final analysis, there are invisible kingmakers around that will zero in on a few candidates and prop them up. That has always been the game, apart from even Buhari himself was propped up from 2003 until he became a four-time Lord.
Although the notion is a general notion to consider zoning and rotation, but I'm one of those who believe that we shouldn't consider such. I totally believe that we should consider merit and people's character for those who want to lead the country. The issue of ethnicity should not play a major role in those who lead this country. Problems do not know ethnicity. Our problems and challenges don't know religion. So we should find people who are competent. But it does look like what happened on the ground, Senator.
Yeah, you have put it well. I think I share in that. But let me quickly say that the fact that a lot of people were on the ground sharing posters, for me, is a measure of the confidence that people have in the ability of the PDP to go in for 2023 and even take the seat. Okay, I should say that quickly. You are talking about body language. Body language, the PDP is about the only party that has entrenched in its constitution the zoning. Okay, so if PDP has given the national chairmanship to the North, then the body language means that the presidency should come to the South. But the Nigerian constitution does not believe in that.
Preclude anyone from
It doesn't preclude anyone. So if at the end of the day, just like it happened during Buhari, when Ahmadu Ali was the chairman, and then Yaradua emerged, and he had to relinquish that for that to go to the South. So if at the end of the day, majority of the delegates for the primaries determined that, okay, somebody from the North has better positioned themselves to get the nomination, well, I think Yochia is the first to say that if that happens, well, he will know what to do. He is a true party man. But for now, the body language is that having come from, from the North, the expectation is that the other one should come from the South. But I agree with you that in the fullness of time, we should stop this talk about
ethnicity
and religion and all of that.
But unfortunately, he has defined our politics. I don't know.
So, the People's Democratic Party of Nigeria set up a zoning committee headed by the governor of Enugu State. And upon the completion of that assignment, was very categorical. We have zoned the party chairmanship to the North, but we have not discussed the issue of the zoning of the presidency.
They said they don't have the mandate.
And for the avoidance of doubt, every section of the country who wants to be president, the kind of party that PDP is, you are going to be allowed to contest. One of the reasons why I told you that those three people who contested, they may not have been lucky today. They demonstrated the robustness of the democratic credential of that party. If you buy the form, you will be allowed to go to contest. That you do not win at a primaries or you do not win at a presidential election does not invalidate the argument that democracy itself thrives on the fact that there are contestations for this post.
Right.
So as far as PDP is concerned, we will, like I always say, our zoning is purely our internal affairs, and we usually have a way we sit together in our thing and take those decisions. When we do, everybody will be.
Let me just off with the parting shot. I'd like you to react, but also just touch on what Senator Yocha, you said, that it looks so much that he's resolute in his agenda to see that PDP wins in 2023. How they are able to do that is going to be, we're going to find out. But that's one area I'd like you to touch on.
Let me just very quickly say about this issue of people saying, oh, zoning and power rotation, and we want merit. There is no democracy, there is no market, if you want to use economic terms, that is perfect, where there is an unfettered competition. In democracy, there's no democracy, in fact, where you have unfettered competition. Absolutely. In fact, the French, they talked about majority tyranny, and they brought a lot of mechanisms to ensure that some imperfections of democracy, if you allow unfettered competition, that they are taken care of. So you have notion of concurrent majority, you have issue of zoning, you have issue of minority rights, you have issue of human rights. So when people come up with this argument that it's merit, it's not being true, it's not being realistic. And also for people to say, my friend said, let's run away from ethnicity, and yes, they forget that this issue has become more like an ideology in this country. Anybody who tells you he doesn't care where the president comes from is either not telling the truth or does not understand the nature of identity construction. In identity studies, we say the identity that is perceived to be under threat is the one most vociferously defended. So if he now, as say a Southwest man, feels that the Southwest has become discriminated against, despite his cosmopolitanism or perceived cosmopolitanism, he will come out fighting. And the same man that is fighting for Ogun, maybe outside the country, will start fighting for Nigeria if he feels Nigeria is being maligned. So I think we should.
Well, I
get
think it was a very
perspective.
interesting conversation, especially coming from three wise men in white attire. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. Mr. Chekusho, you wanted to say something, but we're out of time.
Yeah,
Except
in 1 second.
If you pay for 1 minute, I'll give you but you cannot. We need to close now. But personally, thank you. Our very good friend Chekusho with me. Senator K. Jeff, it's good to see you again. Our Professor Adibe, a friend of the house. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight. But that's our show for today, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Have a pleasant evening.